Welcome to the Brass Junkies, a podcast from the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network featuring interviews with the world's greatest brass players by two thoroughly average ones, Lance LaDuke and myself, Andrew Hitz. Today's episode features Amy McCabe, trumpet player for the President's Own Marine Band, as well as a soloist, brass band player, and the former star of Blast, where she had to perform a big solo while being suspended from the ceiling. She tells us all about it next. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Brass Junkies. I am your co-host, Andrew Hitz. It took me a second to think of my name there because it's Sunday morning. It's pretty early. My fellow co-host is Lance LaDuke. How are you doing this morning, Lance?
I'm feeling very limber.
Very limber. That's interesting. I'm sure the audience is fascinated by that.
I'm doing yoga right now. I'm in corpse pose.
He is not doing yoga, people. All right, he's leaning back in a chair. So if that's yoga, then I guess I do yoga regularly. Before we introduce our guest, I wanted to say that if you are enjoying what you're hearing, or if you can't stand what you're hearing, I guess I would ask why you're still listening. But if you're enjoying what you're hearing, if you could go to iTunes and give us a rating, or if you're up for writing out a short review, it would be super helpful to help us get found by other people like yourselves. So, but without further ado, our guest today is a fabulous trumpet player. They all say they are, but this one actually is. Amy McCabe of the President's Own Marine Band. How are you doing this morning, Amy?
I am well, thank you.
That was a very, very formal answer. So we'll. That was a little bit more serious than Lance's. So
I too am in Savasana right now. So.
Oh really?
Also known as corpse pose.
Yeah. Okay. Corpse pose. There you go. Yeah. See, I might believe that you do yoga.
Hey, it's the Marine corpse pose. Thank you very much. And we're out.
Amy, I wish I could tell you that they're going to get better, but they're not. So, yeah, he just he gains momentum in the wrong direction as these things go. So, Amy is just speaking to Lance for the first time, so you can all kind of see her figure out what the rest of us have already. So, slowly throughout the episode. So, all right. So, Amy, when did you get into the Marine Band?
Oh, gosh, that was almost 9 years ago. It was in 2006, the summer of 2006, so getting up there.
So Mike Colburn was your first boss?
He was, yep, and we recently changed to Colonel Jason Fedek now, so.
Mike's an old friend. Why don't you say horrible things about him?
Ah! I'm sure he listens to the show regularly, so.
No, he doesn't know that podcasts exist. That's okay.
Yeah, he's busy running a school of music now.
This is always very funny to me because I was in the military and I know what that feeling is like. And Mike and I were both euphonium players a million years ago. I was in the Air Force. He was in the Marine Band as a euphonium player, and so that's how I got to know him. And now he was the boss for a long time. So I would always, anytime I ran into somebody from the Marine Band, I would send coded messages. I would ask players in the Marine Band to go up to him and say certain things. And shockingly, nobody took me up on it. And then I told him that, and he just found it hilarious. But
you would ask them to relay code words of incidents that didn't necessarily come up in his interview.
Hey, go ask about this. Hey, go say this to him and see what he says. Hey, go, that kind
of thing. Funny no one took you up on that.
That's so strange, isn't it? I don't understand.
From what I understand, I've never been in the military, but from what I understand, superiors generally always appreciate it when you play jokes on them. Is that accurate, Amy?
That is actually, I just remembered that Colonel Colburn, we did play a joke on him on our last tour concert. This would have been, 2012. We were in Florida and we were playing, do you know Senzamaya? It's all about a snake.
That's like the biggest, most famous tuba solo like in orchestral history.
Right.
Yeah, that's like our one shining moment. So yes, I am familiar with it.
So yeah, our last concert happened to land on Halloween, and someone put this like tiny little rubber snake buried in his score.
Oh,
Very cool.
that's not okay.
That's
I
awesome.
know, but that's like as crazy as it gets in the Marine Band.
That's
So.
And
what
then
did
what?
what did he
happened?
do?
What
Yeah,
happened?
what did he
What
do?
happened?
I think maybe he chuckled and put the snake aside and turned the page. I don't know.
Oh, that's
It went by
not
very quickly.
nearly as cool as
Oh,
my
man.
version of what happened
Yeah.
in my imagination.
That actually reminds me of this was before Lance's time, but one of the best Boston brass stories there is we were in I think it was Covington, Louisiana, and we were getting out of the van next to this school that we were playing at, and there was like a wildlife preserve that was right next to the school, which had a big chain link fence and like barbed wire at the top, but it was a swamp. And our former horn player I keep saying it's been 2 years. Their former horn player JD Shaw, who is a good friend of ours and who like rides motorcycles, and he's a tough guy. He is deathly afraid of snakes. And as he was stepping out of the van, our the trombone player before Lance, Ed, I'll clean it up a little, but he yelled very convincingly, like, "Holy, there's a snake right there, don't move." And JD screamed, like blood-curdling screamed. And then the four of us all just absolutely lost it. There were tears in the van because JD was like almost crying himself because he had gotten so scared. So that makes us sound mean, and that's because we are. So, but it was very, very, very funny. So, anyways, what were you doing before the Marine Band?
Well, right before the Marine Band, I was in Chicago. I was playing in the Chicago Civic Orchestra and just finishing up my master's at Northwestern. So that was right before the Marine Band. And then before that, I was in the first national touring cast of the show Blast, if anyone remembers that, many moons ago.
Did you march drum corps before that?
I didn't, I kind of got hooked up with it when I did the Disney College Big Band program, and they kind of recruited out of that. So
Gotcha. How long did you do Blast?
About 2.5 years. So.
And how long were you on the road each year?
It was full time at that point. So we were on the road doing at least 1 week stops in big cities. So it was kind of nice.
So it was like full, like all the round the clock, what am I trying to say? What is round the year? What the heck is what is that? Yeah. Yes.
It was that.
All year long. Yeah, I play the tuba. What should I do? I should probably talk regularly to famous brass players. That's a great business idea.
If there was a measurement of time, we went around it.
Yes.
So, in case anyone didn't see that show, can you explain what Blast? I don't know if it's still happening in that incarnation, but what was the show like? So, what would happen over the course of an evening?
It was a display of music and motion, marching and musical pageantry. Yeah, it was basically like a little tiny drum corps on stage. They shrunk it down to fit the Broadway stage, and they added lights and costumes. And
how many players?
There was like 60 of us all together. There was maybe like 30 brass players, and then 10 percussion, and then another 10 or 12 people we called VE, which was basically the flag team. So, yeah, it was pretty big for a Broadway show, but we played the same Broadway circuit that all the other shows did. So it was pretty cool that band got in that regular circuit.
And did you have a feature role, or what was your gig?
Yeah, I started off as like what they call a chorus member, and then I worked my way up to being the featured soloist, which involved hanging from the ceiling in a harness and playing a solo. It was lovely.
Really? What was the tune?
It was a Don Ellis tune called Loss. So very sad, and you had to emote and pretend like you were crying on stage. So it was great.
Well, really, who among us hasn't been suspended from the ceiling? Pretending to cry.
while playing a tuba?
Yeah, exactly. While playing Sensamaya, our one solo, yes. So what did a typical day on the road, I guess once you already got to a city, what did a typical day that you had a show on Blast, what was that like?
It was pretty awesome. I mean, we didn't have to show up to the theater until about 5 o'clock, and then we would do group stretch class. And then as I'm recalling this, I'm like, oh, this all sounds really weird.
If you say so. I thought it sounded normal.
Okay. Yeah, so we did a group stretch, and then we do like a brass warm-up.
Now that's fun.
Yeah.
In a group, yeah.
Yeah. Boston Brass, we used to warm up together every time. Yeah, not so much.
Yeah, then we'd like run little parts of the show. Sometimes we'd have new people trying to get in because there was a lot of movement. I mean, we did, drill on the stage. And so if somebody new was coming into the show, we had to spend a lot of time kind of trying to fit them into all of that. So we usually spend about 45 minutes trying to work the new guy in. So what if any impact do you feel like that had in terms of brass playing or theater or what's happening with, are you fans of Minozel? Oh, totally. Oh my gosh. They're doing great stuff for sure.
So when you see out of the ordinary stuff, which I would categorize Minozel as certainly, but Blast is the thing that was sort of came out of nowhere. It was an unexpected thing to do. What's your take on that? And do you feel like you had any kind of lasting impact on the direction?
Yeah, I mean, I think, music is so multidimensional in that if you can add other elements of interest for the audience, that's always a good thing. In terms of like all the acting and the movement and stuff, I think that, just being in great athletic shape is always good for brass playing to help with breathing. And I think back and watch the videos of that show and I'm like, I don't know how I played and did all of that, but it's possible,
Are you involved in any sort of avant-garde stuff now? I mean, have you? Well, let me ask you a different question. What do you know? What's going on with Blast right now? Is it touring or?
They were kind of purchased by a small production company in Japan, and they've been doing small tours just in Japan now. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah, still have a few friends involved, but not so many now.
And do you feel like it's a positive or a useful direction for? There's, we try and Andrew and I are trying to figure out ways to encourage brass players to not only become as good as they can on their instrument, but to look at other opportunities and explore other avenues. And do you feel like in light of all of that, where do you feel like we're going, and where would you like to where would you see students like to encourage students to go?
I think for me, I never planned on performing as a career. It just kind of went from one thing to the other. But when I did that program at Disney, the college music program, I don't know if any of you guys have done that, but it was that first experience of getting paid to play your instrument was kind of a huge impression on me. I was like, what? You can actually make money doing this? And so I just kind of like went from there. And I think, going for any opportunity that allows you to play, whether you're getting paid for it or not, will just, if a spark lights up, then follow that spark, and keep going. So
that's good.
So what did you want to do before you realized you wanted to play for a living?
You ready for this? I want to be a librarian. From one spectrum of nerd to the other, it's like...
Now I see why you're laughing.
Those guys party way too hard. I better become a musician.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's really funny. I have a friend who's a research librarian at Tufts, and she had a conversation with a barista at Starbucks who somehow figured out that she was a librarian, and he said that he wanted to become a librarian too. And then she said, "Oh, where are you thinking about going to school to do that?" And then this guy said, "Oh, you have to go to school to do that?" and then she said, "Give me my latte." as she stormed out. So I guess it's not as easy as just declaring that you're a librarian, but whatever.
Right.
Wow.
What was it about being a librarian that was attractive to you?
Well, I specifically wanted to be a school librarian. I liked working with kids, but I didn't necessarily want like classroom time all the time. So I was like, oh, librarian, they don't have to be with the kids all the time, but
and when they do, the kids have to be quiet by definition.
Yeah.
You're smart, Amy McCabe.
I'm passionate about working with children occasionally under controlled, quiet circumstances. or they do what I tell them, or I throw them out.
That's actually brilliant. I want a summer vacation every year, but I don't like kids very much. How can I? I've got it.
Quiet, check.
You figured me out.
Indoors, check.
Well, now I've figured out why you laughed before you said it. So that's pretty funny. So where did you do your undergrad?
I went to Illinois Wesleyan University in Bloomington, Illinois.
Okay. And how did you and so what was your major there?
Elementary education, just K through 6, general, math, science, reading, all that. So no music. No music.
And I'm assuming that you played trumpet and took lessons, or is that not
true?
I
did for part of my part of my undergrad degree there I did. But they were non-major lessons, so 30 minutes long.
Wow. And then you majored in trumpet performance, studying with Charlie and Barbara at Northwestern?
Yes.
So
and then
how did that happen?
Well, actually, I think it was Blast that kind of gave me a little time to practice my scales and figure out how to play the trumpet.
Well, so in between there was the Disney thing. How did you, we talk to students all the time who they've been living and breathing the trumpet since the time they could pick it up, and they just always knew they wanted to be a professional. They always knew they wanted to excel at this thing. And it sounds like you took a less direct path, and you just sort of, capitalized maybe isn't the right word, but you saw an opportunity and then explored that opportunity, and then that led to another thing. Is that right? Or how did you get in? How did you decide to audition for the Disney thing?
That was like the only poster that was up in the music lounge at Illinois Wesleyan. It was, I guess maybe they had some opera festivals or something. And I saw it and I was like, hey, Disney World's cool. Let me try that. So.
So did you play a lot in undergrad?
Yeah, I played in the ensembles. I played in our college big band and the wind ensemble. So.
And so what was the audition process like for the Disney thing? You sent a tape and...
Actually, I went somewhere and played in a practice room in a university somewhere for someone.
Is there anybody else in the practice room? Maybe go down the hall, third room on the left, play 3 scales.
That was pretty much it.
That was pretty much it. Out.
The Mickey Mouse theme.
Here's your safe word.
Yeah. The Mickey Mouse theme in B major.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, that's a fascinating story. That's a really fun. I'm trying to wrap my brain around that.
You get the gig, and it was a summer thing, or was it a year-round thing?
That was just a summer thing.
And then while you were there that summer is when the Blast thing came up, or had you gone a few summers?
Well, they had the show was going on in London, I think, at that point, and they were getting ready to move to Broadway, and so they were simultaneously trying to expand into the North American market. So they were hiring a second cast in order to do all of that touring. So that's kind of when that came up. And there were some people that were involved with Disney that knew about the people that had done that they thought the Disney people would be good candidates for Blast. So that's how we got involved.
Were you done with your undergrad at that point?
Yeah, that was Disney was in between my junior and senior year. So.
Okay. So you go to Disney before your senior year, you finish out your senior year, and then when that's done, you hit the road?
Yep, and I went back to Orlando, actually, and we did an abbreviated version of the Blast show as like music contractors there, and then learned the full 2-hour show while we were doing this short show at Epcot.
I think I saw that thing, actually. I'm trying to remember what I was down there for. I think I saw that.
And you're like, what are they doing? Why are they running around?
This is the convergence of music and movement.
Yeah.
This is the future.
This is the future.
At Epcot, it's perfect. Oh, goodness.
Well, yeah. Oh, dear. I just, anything that's... So often, I guess I'm soapboxing a lot today. I apologize, but Andrew and I get hit up by, I want to start a brass quintet, and my first question is why? There's like 9,000 brass quintets, and if the answer is I want to make some beer money playing weddings, and it's like great, no problem. Do a few recitals. I like playing chamber music. I want to get together with my buddies, and fine, wonderful. because chamber music is so important. But like to me, it's just such a overloaded market. So start anything else, anything but a quintet with brass,
Yeah.
and carve out your own niche. So anytime I saw, if I saw black, I'm a euphonium player, so I always just thought weird, and so blast jumps out at me as an opportunity that there wasn't before. Create a thing that hadn't existed before, I guess, is where I want to push students. I don't know. I'm just lecturing now.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that's great.
Let's see here. So yeah, I'm still trying to. It's a fascinating story that you're telling here. So then you go from Blast, and then from Blast is then when you went to Northwestern after the 2.5 years in Blast. Is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so what was I know one more thing I wanted to ask you about Blast before we go on to that. Was there anyone that you toured with in the brass realm that we all know today?
You might know Adam Rappa. Do you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Adam was there. We started at the same time. Amy Sanchez, she plays horn out in LA.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about anybody else that's actually still playing. Ryan McGeorge, he plays euphonium in the Marine Band as well.
Yeah, we've heard of him.
Yeah.
He's famous. He's euphonium famous, but he's famous. So
Tipping McFrax a lot.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, great. So actually, there's a YouTube clip up of Lance and I doing a music business presentation at the last Army tuba euphonium workshop, and we spend about 10 minutes talking to Ryan from the stage, which is pretty funny. So that we just keep using him as an example, and he just kept putting his hands up like, "What are you doing?" So, which Ryan knows us well enough to know that guaranteed another mention, like within 5 minutes. So, so then you went to Northwestern to study with Barbara and Charlie. Can you actually, I guess, tell people that don't know who that is, who they are, and what it was like to study with them?
Barbara Butler and Charlie Geyer they're now the teachers at Rice, but they've just created a great studio over the years of a lot of great trumpet players, and I was really lucky to study with them. So. What
do you think that their students have had incredible successes over the years? This is kind of a hard question to pinpoint and answer, but what is something about their approach to teaching that you think has led to having such successful students?
They have a really hands-on approach. They're also very methodical. They make us perform all the time. Wednesdays was solo class, and then if you auditioned and got into something different within your studio called excerpt class, that was every week on Mondays. So you were actively performing and doing lots of stuff every week. You weren't just performing at your jury at the end of the semester. So I think that was pretty important. Also, just the environment of the students was really great. Everybody was friendly, competitive. They did not put up with egos at all in the trumpet section. That was actually one of their goals, was to rid the world of egotistical trumpet players. So hopefully.
And then they were going to go heal sick children. Yes. That's an up. That Lance and I have the same goal, but we do it by belittling people. So
no.
I don't know if
that
works.
Works.
It works for us. So
works for us.
I don't know if we're changing the world, but it feels good. Oh man. It's interesting. So you were performing all of the time.
Yeah, just to be in the hot seat and be under the gun and have a performance, whether it's you're just performing an etude from memory or you're, trying to learn Bartók Concerto for Orchestra for the first time. It was just happening all the time. So you just got really used to performing. Doing a lot of mock auditions too really helped, I think. So when you were actually in the audition, it didn't feel like this foreign experience. That was really important.
How big of a role has fear played for you? I mean, it seems like from the outside looking in and hearing you tell your story, you just sort of, the impression that I have is you just sort of fearlessly take on these challenges.
Well, I suppose I've had my own share of fear and experiences with that, but yeah, you kind of have to be fearless. I remember like my first, I guess, was a master class, or it was a solo class. The very first solo class that I walked into. Here I'm a graduate student. I'm also a little older than most of the grad students because I'd spent 2 years doing blast. And I come in and I hear our freshman trumpet studio class, which was Matt Muckey, who plays in the New York Phil now, Ethan Bensdorf, and Mike Martin. They all performed at this first solo class.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and so I, was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? Why am I here? All these kids who had, had a lot of experience in high school playing in great youth orchestras and things, and I was kind of clueless at that point about playing in orchestras. I was just, going down with my blinders on, I guess, and that was probably a very fearful moment for me.
Okay, so let's stick with it. What next? Like what allowed you to overcome that? Like what was the conversation in your head, or what experience helped you, or how do you work through a thing like that?
Charlie was super honest with me. He just said when I auditioned at Northwestern, they heard what they listen for is a great sound, and they want to know that. And if you have a great sound, they can work with everything else. So that was sort of the boost of confidence for me, is that I had a good sound to begin with, and then I just really needed to work my tail off to put all the other pieces together. So.
What's worked your tail off? Can you unpack that for us? Somebody who's striving to become a professional, what did you do? What is the definition of working your tail off? What's a normal day or week look like?
Oh, man, I started buying all the etude books that I could. If I recognized the titles, if I didn't recognize them, I just went to a music store and just purchased everything and started learning stuff. Like I just needed to catch up. And I did a lot of listening. I go hear the CSO quite a bit, especially when I was in Civic. I'd go hear other performances. I went to everybody's recitals. I got inspired by hearing other people play new and different stuff and not like the same standard trumpet literature. So,
how unique was it? How many of your colleagues would you see at everybody else's recital? And it's a leading question because that's a real bugaboo for Andrew and me.
Soapbox.
Was that a typical thing that you would see lots of players around, or you were kind of the one that was at all the recitals, soaking it all in and learning?
I don't know. I feel like we had a pretty supportive studio. Everybody tried to attend people's recitals. And, Charlie said something once that's really stuck with me, that, everybody that you're playing with, whether it's in studio or your job or whatever, everyone that you're playing with has something special to offer, whether you like that person's articulation or you like the way that person sounds when they're playing the upper register. And if you can take that and put it in your back pocket and try to incorporate that into your own playing, then that's how you can learn from your peers. So it's like super important to do that,
Boy, that's really great.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, anytime I hear a student say that they're bored, I tell them, and to do it in person right in front of you with a peer is really, really great. But even if you just listen to a recording of some professional musician who could be dead, who doesn't even play your instrument, and you figure out what do they do better than you, and then just go make it happen on a trumpet or a tuba or a clarinet or whatever the heck you play,
Yeah.
Yep, very important. One thing to ask you about your playing is that the first time that I played with you and saw you play, one of my first thoughts was, and I kind of hate this term, but it like how natural your playing appeared, and natural implies that you haven't worked and that you haven't, that you just kind of like were handed a trumpet and then everything was efficient and all of that. So what I mean by natural is just that like you're an incredibly efficient player, and you sound amazing. That's kind of that's a requisite to play the level that you do. But everything just seems there's not a lot of movement. There's not a lot of struggle. You look the same when you're playing soft as when you're playing loud, as when you're playing high, as when you're playing low. So can you? I'm guessing that's the result of an approach. So can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, thank you, first off. That was very kind. I guess, maybe this is sort of the Chicago tradition, but really just like trying to like create the sound that's in your head on your horn has been the ultimate goal of mine. And the closer you can get to that, the better. I mean, I don't think it's exactly what I'm hearing. There's always things that get in the way as far as the brass instrument, but you just trying to hear the voice in your head and get it out, I think has been my main philosophy. And then trying to figure out all the technical ways to do that are hopefully secondary in my thoughts when I'm playing. So.
Yeah, I'll never forget this past Easter that we played together at the National Cathedral, and Jeff Strong, is he still your colleague, or has he left?
Yep, through the summer.
Okay.
He'll be there.
He's headed out to the St. Louis Symphony. But that the two of you, the organ at the National Cathedral, which really sounds incredible, but it's at about 438 or something. It's like ridiculously low, and I remembered the two of you not only playing in tune with the organ and with each other, but it didn't look like you were working at all, and it was both inspiring and infuriating at the same time.
Thank God my tuning slide was working.
Yeah, my tuning slide fell out a couple of times. So, and the three of us in back,
what's a tuning slide?
Yeah, exactly. Greg Miller and Matt Neese and I, we were like, this organ is so low, and then the two trumpets up front just looked like bored. So. In a good way. So, all right.
Hey, can I interrupt for a second
and
talk about Patreon?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for anyone who's listening to this. One of the ways that you can help us, if you want to, is to become a patron of our show. Andrew and I have set up a Patreon account. Patreon, for those of you who aren't familiar, is a platform. It's a crowdfunding platform, but instead of funding an individual product like with Kickstarter, it's for ongoing endeavors like our podcast. So the way it works is that you go to patreon.com and search for The Brass Junkies, or patreon.com/The Brass Junkies. And you can sign up for as little as $1 an episode. And what happens is every time we upload an episode, your account is deducted for $1, and you can set an upper limit amount on that so that you don't get, if we all of a sudden start putting hundreds of podcasts up a month, you don't get charged that amount. You can set an upper limit on each month and an upper limit on each year. So if you are thinking about doing that, there are incentives for the different levels. If you want to contribute more than $1, you are able to get access to some behind-the-scenes stuff and special Skype calls that we're going to have. And we would just love to have you be a part of it, and that way it would help us offset some of the costs associated with putting the podcast together. So patreon.com/The Brass Junkies. You can find out more about it at our website as well if you click on the Become a Patron button.
Thank you, Lance.
No, thank you.
And Amy actually has kindly agreed to donate all of the money that we were going to pay her for this to our Patreon account. So,
wow.
Which technically is nothing. So, but that was still a nice gesture.
And this is separate from the fundraiser for Jens, right?
Yes, actually, that was a beautiful segue. So. As you know, our dear friend Jens has been going through some chop problems. So I was wondering if, and he's someone who you play with in the brass band of Battle Creek, which we were going to ask you about next. So maybe you could offer some, words of encouragement for your colleague.
Oh, yeah. Just I hope that your chops are feeling better, and Appalachian Spring is not on the program for the next concert, so I think that everything should be okay.
Well, that's
what do you
good.
think? What do you think it is about his personality that's caused him to develop this this situation, Amy?
Oh, she got quiet.
Yeah, it did.
I don't know if I'm at liberty to say.
I mean, you think it has anything to do with the Canadian Germanic heritage, or it's the flamboyant outerwear, or the...
It could be all of that,
He maybe did the splits one too many times.
Oh, goodness. So I'm not sure how you segue out of Jens doing the splits one too many times, but I'm going to attempt it.
Which equals 1.
Yeah, well, there is that. So there is a wonderful video up on YouTube, by the way, of him playing with rhythm and brass, and at the end of the tune, he throws his arms up in the air and he does the splits, and he inadvertently kicks a music stand over, and it's awesome. So you should all Google that for sure. Anyway, all right. I'm sure he appreciates your words of encouragement, Amy. Yesterday was actually his birthday, so it won't be by the time this airs in a few days. But happy birthday, Jens!
Happy birthday!
I wished him a happy birthday via text, and I pointed out that he's old, and he told me, you will catch up someday, and then immediately texted me back and said, wait. Actually, I hope that doesn't ever happen. So there's only one way for that to happen. So, anyways,
actually, you know what? I don't like to brag, but as a gift for Jens this year, I got him 2 cases of Chop Saver. I hope he takes them in the spirit in which it was intended.
Yeah. External use only.
Per lip.
Yeah, external use only. All right, so so Brass Band of Battle Creek. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, the group has been around for a while, and it's sort of a collaboration of a lot of great players from all over the country that come and play in brass band. They also have about a handful, about 3 or 4 guys that come over from England, which is the mecca of brass band, to play tenor horn, and our bass trombone player also is
Frosty.
Yeah. So it's a lot of fun. I mean, they just put on good programs, and we're doing a lot of work with the youth band in Battle Creek, and hopefully that'll be more of a annual thing now.
Have things stabilized over there? I mean, maybe you don't know behind the scenes stuff that's going on, but it was a little touch and go there for a while. We saw on social media and through friends that things were a little tough in terms of the funding, and then of course the December thing happened, and I think there was just another recent performance, right? So things are stable.
Yeah, I think the Kellogg Foundation granted them some more funding for a couple of years, and I think the future looks bright, so.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, and who are the trumpets in Brass Band of Battle Creek as of today? Oh
gosh, we've Chris Jowdis plays solo cornet. Jens is on soprano. It's sort of a rotating door of different people. Sure. Scott Thornburg, who teaches at Western Michigan.
He's a good friend.
Lenny Foy, John Daniel plays rep piano. Rex Richardson generally plays flugelhorn. Rich Kelly was out there this past time doing that.
I saw Rich. You familiar with Periscope at all? The app Periscope?
No.
It's a live streaming app, and this particular one's owned by Twitter. And we could be live streaming this right now from our phones and have 3 different streams of this conversation, which would be fascinating. But Jennifer Rupp, who's she's the business administrator for Battle Creek. Can't remember. She posted that they were live streaming from a brass band of Battle Creek rehearsal. And so I fired it up. It was just the middle of the afternoon one day, and I got to see Rich Kelly playing some jazz combo tune, and then he sang. I wish I could remember the name of the tune, but it was pretty cool. I was, instantly transported to Battle Creek in the auditorium watching Rich run through this chart. Very, very cool thing.
That's awesome, yeah. That was a chart called Crescent Moon. It's an original tune that was written for a short film that featured Dave Radachak, who's a drummer who recently passed away from a pretty long battle with cancer. But this tune, it's beautiful, yeah. It's
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think it's on YouTube. You should definitely check it out. It's a really great film. I don't know the name of the film specifically, but it's pretty cool.
Holy cow. Dave was an amazing player.
Yeah.
There you go.
Boy, he was the drummer when I was in Battle Creek. He was the drummer. Holy moly, I had no idea.
Wow.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah, and we just lost the low brass world just this past week. Lost one of the good ones, Kelly Thomas, was a dear friend of mine who he was the tuba euphonium teacher at the University of Tennessee, and he and I were in grad school together, and it was very sudden. So yeah, it's funny, the music thing, and performing seems really important. Not that it's not, but then real life steps in, and you kind of get your priorities aligned pretty quickly. So,
yeah.
Yep, not ideally. So, okay. So, Rich is infuriatingly talented, isn't he?
Yeah, he's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's like, it's kind of, he's one of my best friends in the world, and it's just, if I was a better person, I would be inspired and motivated by him, but it really just makes me mad. It really does. I just don't, I've seen him play Brandenburg with an orchestra that sounded like there were actually angels playing the piccolo, but it's like you look up, it was descending from above, and then you hear him play a solo like Clifford Brown, and then you tell him to play like Miles Davis, and then he just switches, and then you tell him to play like Lee Morgan, and he just switches, and it's just like, okay, this is not okay, man. This is not okay. So, let's see here.
Here's a couple. You want a Marine Band question or a pre-Marine Band question?
Oh, go for it. Either, yes.
Well, let's start with the pre-Marine Band question, and it's going back to the fear, that sort of angle. What moment or moments, you just pick one of them, where you felt like this is a thing I can do? You had this sense that you accomplished some goal, or you got to some place where you thought, you know what, I think I can make a run at this.
Gosh, great question. My first year of grad school, I took all these festival auditions, like for NRO and, all the whole gamut of those, like the collegiate free festivals. And I didn't get into any single one. I was like, what, like, what am I doing here? Mm. And then actually it was the next fall. I had some health issues crop up and had to take about 5 months off of the horn. And when I came back, like all of a sudden everything just happened. I got into Tanglewood and Civic, and I feel like, we were just talking about perspective in life. Like, I think a lot of the fear of like not being good enough or not being able to get a job sort of went away after I had a new perspective with life. So, if that answers your question, I don't know.
Well, it sort of does. If it's not too personal, can you unpack that a little bit more in terms of you're on the road coming back, and what in your mindset is different? Just a sense of priorities? I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I guess a worry about money. Like, I was always concerned about paying the bills, and then finally I was like, you know what, life is too short to worry about paying the bills. That went away. I don't know how. I mean, we still all have, we still have to do that, but like, it's not this like gnawing anxiety. Also, gosh, what else? Just to really go for it in the moment, to make music be the bottom line, like not worry about being a note getter. That was
Did your
huge.
approach to playing, I don't mean from the fundamentals of playing, well, maybe it was. It sounds like your approach, your overall approach to life and career and playing changed. There was that injury was some sort of a catalyst, maybe not to put too fine a point on it, but is that getting at it, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, whenever, something rattles you, whatever it happens, whether it's a, death in the family or something personal that happens to you, you're going to change as a human being. And and who you are as a musician is who you are as a person. So I think that's what tipped me over the edge. And I think I lost a lot of the apprehensions and the what ifs, I'm not good enough. And then it just kind of took me on a skyrocket to winning things.
Why didn't you quit? Why didn't you give up?
Because, gosh, I don't know. I just, you fall in love with music. I remember the first concert I came back and played was with Civic. I was just plugging along at third trumpet on Rite of Spring. But after that concert, I was just so lit up. I was like, I knew I was doing the right thing. I knew I was on the right path. And that's, just like I said before, I guess, listen to the spark that's inside you. And if something turns you on, literally, then you need to follow that.
That's awesome. Well, good for you. Good for us.
Yeah, we're interviewing Damondre Thurman afterwards, who's really talented and funny, but I don't know if his story is going to be as interesting as yours is.
I don't know. I think Damondre's got some stories up his sleeve.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about that can be shared on the podcast. So,
okay.
Yeah, we have a clean rating on iTunes. So, yeah, actually, now that I think about it, Lance, that interview might be really short. It'd be like,
right.
Hey, Damondre, it was your birthday this week. Yeah, man. Well, happy birthday. Cool. Any stories you can share? Nope. All right. Well, thank you very much. That might be the shortest one yet. Can you talk briefly about the process of auditioning for the Marine Band and what that was like?
Sure. Yeah, we do an open cattle call audition. So if you turn in your resume and practice the list, then you're invited to show up. Usually for the trumpet players, we usually get a pretty big crop of people in. I think the last audition we had, which was Jeff Strong's audition, got 120 people showing up. And they listen to everybody. So you get to at least play round one, and everything's behind a screen. So usually round one and round two wouldn't start until the second day. So if you make it through round one, then you go and take an interview with one of our officers to answer all the questions about your background history, whether you've ever been arrested for anything, all the military side of things. And then you would show up the second day for the semifinal round and the final round if you would keep advancing. So very typical to an orchestral audition.
How did the second and final rounds differ from the first round? Less people, I guess, other than that.
Yeah, less people. For me, the whole audition was behind a screen, which I actually prefer that. There's something intimidating about when the screen comes down, a bunch of people in uniform are in front of you. Yeah, I guess we did a couple of final rounds. I think there was 2 spots open for when I auditioned, and they were trying to figure out if they were going to take 1 or 2 people. And so we kept going back and playing more of I can't remember what the cornet solo was on there, but every time we come back, we play another movement of the cornet solo. So, yeah, that was fun.
Did they end up hiring 2 people or just
nope,
you?
Just the one that time. So
just the one.
Yeah.
And who was on your panel? Not even like necessarily names, but like what instruments, what positions? Do you even know?
Yeah, we have a solo cornet and a principal trumpet, and those 2 guys were on there. And then we also have another guy that's a section leader. He's a voting member of the panel. Our officers, our 3 conductors are voting members of the panel, and then the brass principals are also on the panel. So,
got it. And solo cornet, that's Matt, is that right?
Yeah, Matt Harding. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then the first trumpet, is that Kurt?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Kurt.
How big's the section?
Sorry?
How big is the section? What's the makeup?
There's 19 of us.
Wow.
Yeah, that is a lot.
How does that work? Some of it rotates and some of it stays the same, or what's the process?
Yeah, we all do everything. So everybody does funerals and concerts and brass quintets and what have you. The gist of it is we need to have a concert band or a small concert band size available to go to the White House at any time. So that's typically why our numbers are a little bit bigger. So we have 8 in a concert band section. So if you're doing funerals and ceremonies one week, then generally you'll be doing sit-down things the next week. So it's a great rotation. I think it keeps everyone nice and fresh.
And for the concert band setup with 8, is it 6 cornets and 2 trumpets, or what's the breakdown?
That's right, 6 and 2.
Well, what percentage of the time would you say you play cornet, and what percentage of the time you play trumpet?
It just varies. The cornets actually play trumpets depending on the chart. The person playing principal will decide whether they want to play that on trumpet or cornet.
Right.
Typically, if it's a march, we would always play it on cornet, or if more of a transcription, like really notey string part, it would be on cornet. But otherwise, we play a lot of trumpets too, as in the cornet section. So,
well, here's a geeky question for the geeky trumpet players listening. What's your approach to playing? How does your approach to playing cornet differ, if at all, from playing the trumpet?
You have to relax a lot more. You can't really muscle things like you can on the trumpet. You definitely have to chill out and relax, because if you get tight on the cornet, it just does not work. So.
Well, this was my Marine Band question. I know when I was in the Air Force, we did a whole variety of things over the course of the year. There'd be tours, and there's concerts in town, and there's ceremonies, and there's all kinds of stuff. And for me, actually, the time that it was the most, I want to choose my words carefully, I guess satisfying, or the time that I felt like I completely understood what I was why I was there, was when I was doing ceremonies, particularly funerals. I just had a real sense of connection between what I was doing and the meaning and significance of it. So it doesn't have to be that for you. It's different for everybody. But what's your favorite thing, or what's the most sort of significant part of the year or type of gig for you?
I would definitely have to agree with that. There's something when you're playing a funeral at Arlington Cemetery, whether it's a World War II vet or someone who was killed in active duty, it's a huge, you're just really, as a musician, you have the opportunity to sort of transmute a lot of the grief that people are feeling and honor them in a really special way that not a lot of people can do. So I think that's a really important part of our job. Yeah. And I would say that's definitely my favorite.
And then in terms of, let's say, the concert side, what sorts of gigs are the most interesting or significant to you?
In the concert band, we do these national tours, and we do a lot of grassroots tours. We're not necessarily playing in Carnegie Hall, or we're getting out into the Americas.
High school gyms, yeah.
Yeah. And playing Armed Forces medley is just, I'm sure you guys have done it too, but there's just a real sense of pride that happens when you see all the vets stand up if they've had prior service. So that's really neat.
I love the questions afterwards. I have a nephew in the Air Force. Do you know him? Okay. One, and my other favorite was, well, what's your real job in the Air Force?
Yep.
Those are my two favorites.
Oh man, you should tell them that you emptied the lavatories in the fighter jets. What's your real job? You can't play the euphonium.
I thought the euphonium was actually part of the lavatory that I was cleaning.
Yeah,
up.
Exactly. There you go.
It's all plumbing, right?
Yes, it is all plumbing. So, all right. Well, is there anything that we neglected to ask you about, Amy, that your rabid fan base will be mad that we didn't ask you to speak about?
Oh gosh, I think we covered the gamut here.
What's the summer schedule for the Marine Band? If somebody is in D.C. and they want to catch the band, when's a good time for them to do that?
Wednesday nights on the West Capitol steps are concerts, and Thursdays over by the Washington Monument, the Sylvan Theater, and then Friday nights we do Friday night parades, which is more like a military tattoo, I would say.
What's a
and
tattoo?
That's more marching and musical displays of pageantry.
So it's like blast,
and we've
but not hip.
come full circle.
Yeah. it's yeah.
And
exactly.
and are you suspended like from the Washington Monument or anything like that while you play any solos?
Not yet, but it's in the works.
There you go. So you never know. There might be like an E9 listening to this who might be like, we need to suspend someone from one of the monuments. Probably all the military hires up listen to our podcast. So
yes, let's hope not.
or something like that.
Hey, wait.
hey,
what the heck does that
yeah,
mean?
what? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
Hey,
she's
marginally nice to you.
Yeah. We've been as respectful as we are capable of.
Particularly with a trumpet player. For
Yeah,
heaven's sake.
I know. We haven't done as much making fun of the trumpet player. I'm not as we usually do. So Rex Richardson was the last one, and that one we when we hit record, we were in the process of making fun of him, and then as we stopped, we were in the process of making fun of him. So, because he's like, he's played in 800 countries, and he's,
I just got back from Pakistan, where I played with. This band is made up of a large dog, and these cats could really play. Oh wait, I said dog.
Oh goodness. So
Actually,
anyway,
scarily accurate.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's it's not. Mine's actually pretty. Mine's good too, but it's not quite as good as Lance's. So I won't. I won't follow it up. But all right. Well, if anyone would like to reach Lance and I, it's at pedalnotemedia.com. You can find Lance at LaDuke on Twitter. I am at Hitz Tuba. The next guest that we are going to have on the podcast will be Demondre Thurman, the famous euphonium soloist.
Famous.
Yep, just as famous as, maybe more famous than Lance.
Way more famous.
Way more famous. And Amy, where can people find you?
Well, I guess I will be on the Capitol steps on Wednesday nights.
There you go.
Thursdays at the Washington Monument.
Super fans, stay away. Yes. Yeah, good. Yeah, that Lance and I are available in lots of places because no one is interested in taking us up on it. So that's kind of why. So, all right. Well, Amy, thank you so much. You've got a really fascinating story that I think will be inspiring to a lot of people who did not, as you said, grow up playing in fancy youth orchestras and that kind of stuff, and the fact that you're on the top of the heap for trumpet players these days, with your very unique compared to a lot of us stories. That's fantastic.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, we'll see ya.
You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to help support the podcast in order to make more episodes like this one possible, please visit pedalnotemedia.com/donate for more details. Also, be sure to check out our latest recording, The Brass Recording Project, at brassrecordingproject.com. The Brass Junkies is produced by Austin Boyer and Buddy Deschler of the Fredericksburg Brass Institute. Executive producers are Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.
Ho!